Good morning, everyone. It's Joe Abadi, and we're live at Vintage Motocross Radio. We're coming up at 11 o'clock. We're going to be having our guest today, Steve Stackable. In the meantime, I wanted to begin a little bit earlier today to make sure that the audio is good, that the video is clear. So please, if you can comment that you can hear me, and that also that you can see the slideshow, it'd be a big help. We'll have Steve with us in just a few minutes. Before we begin, I do want to thank our sponsors today who makes this show possible. Northwest Mako CZ. For all your Mako and CZ parts, please contact Alan Brown. Preston Petty Products. The legend continues. Since the early 1970s, we've all enjoyed Preston Petty products, and Paul Standard has, of course, brought that all back to us here in the present day. You can get all the great items that you loved from Preston Petty Products. AMSOIL, the first in synthetic oil since 1973. Full Cycle Racing. Please see my friend Tom McAllister for rims, spokes, lacing, truing for your vintage bikes and your modern bikes as well. If you watch our Vintage Motocross Q&A show on Wednesdays, you'll know that Full Circle Racing has been offering some specials with free shipping on spokes and rims. He's got a hub special going on where he bead blasts them for you. They've got a lot to offer there at Full Circle Racing. Vidco, keep the ride going with over 650 products in their catalog. And I've just learned that Vidco will, in the very near future, be reproducing Fox Air Shock. So keep your eyes open for that. Motion Pro for specialized tools, cable, and controls. Be sure to visit Motion Pro online. In fact, be sure that you visit all of our sponsors online, on Facebook, on Instagram. They've always got lots of specials, a lot of great tools, and things that you're going to enjoy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us so far. Philip Liberty, sound looks good. Thanks, Phil, and everyone else who was commenting that our sound is good. In a moment, my guest will be Steve Stackable. But first, I just want to say that there was some sad news out of Belgium yesterday. Six-time world champion Joel Robert has been hospitalized with an apparent heart attack. Joel, as you may know, has suffered diabetes over the years, has had several strokes, but we keep Joel in our prayers. Joel, of course, began his career at CZ and shortly afterward brought Suzuki to the forefront in motocross with a string of championships for them. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the Robert family this morning. My guest today is Steve Stackable, who began his professional career at CZ as well. Steve was born in Wiesbaden, Germany. His father served in the U.S. military. He was raised in Wyoming and briefly lived in Japan before his family settled in Austin, Texas when he was about 16 years old. Steve was the winner of the 1976 Unadilla National. Along with Tony DeStefano, Ken Howard, and Gary Semix, he represented the United States in 1977 for the motocross and Trophy des Nations events, where they scored an impressive second-place finish in France and in Holland. He's best remembered as being a member of the Mako factory team, where he took the German mark to a victory in the 500cc class of what was then known as the Super Series of Motocross. We'll be talking more about all of those years as factory racer, as well as his passion for hang gliding. It's my pleasure to have as my guest this morning, Mr. Steve Stackable. Steve, are you with me?
I'm with you, Joe, all the way.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, Steve. It's funny, I didn't have it written down in my questions or anything, and it just came to mind a little while before we came on the air. Jimmy Weinert is often known as giving a lot of people nicknames. Did he name you Short Stack, or how did you get that name?
No. Short Stack's from way back on the farm days when I used to eat pancakes. And my grandmother made two stacks, tall stack and a short stack, and I always went for the short stack.
Thank you for clearing that up, Steve.
Yeah.
So tell me this: where did your journey first begin riding bikes, and who introduced you to dirt bikes?
Well, my dad was military, and we were in Japan. I was 10, 11, 12 years old while we were there. My older stepbrother bought a Honda 90 step through, I forget what they call them, but, Honda Cubs or whatever.
Right.
And, obviously that was a big deal. He was 2 years older than I was. And so he got the first motorcycle in the family, so to speak. There were 7 of us kids, living on base. And But what happened was we would, occasionally he wouldn't let us ride his bike because he thought we were too small. But we go sneak off base and go out to the hills where the students were hanging out and the soldiers. And if we took some American cigarettes out there, we could trade them American cigarettes to take a lap on their bikes around the hill. And we did a lot of that, as much as we could get away with.
And how many years did you live in Japan, Steve?
3 years. Yeah. And before that was Wyoming. My dad was stationed at Warren Air Force Base. He was a lifer in the Air Force, and then we ended up coming back to California after that, and then going to Texas. He was stationed at Bergstrom Air Force Base, and that's where he retired. So that Austin became a home at that time, more or less, and lived there 30 years and more. So
now,
I still get kind of home.
Okay. I read that you were actually born in Wiesbaden, Germany.
That's correct. My mother's full-blooded German. She didn't even speak English when she came to the United States.
And how many years did you live in Germany? In Germany for?
A month.
That was it.
1 month.
Just a month. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you use your brother's little step-through scooter, and you're riding around. And what's the next step from there, Steve?
Oh, from Germany my dad's Stackable Station is actually a foster name, but my dad was a foster child, and his foster parents were much older than most folks when they adopted him, and his mother was dying, so we got shipped back to the United States. He married my mom, and then we moved back to the United States almost immediately because his foster mother was dying from Michigan. So, yeah, it's kind of a extended story, but it's funny because my son's been doing research lately on my son Travis. Been doing a lot of research lately on my pop and our family, ancestry, DNA, and 23andMe. It's amazing that he's taking such an interest in the family because it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Once you have a foster father, it's hard to trace that stuff back. But I'm impressed with his results and all this. But that has nothing to do with motorcycle racing. So.
Well, it's still an interesting part of your history, and I'm glad you shared that with us. So when you then settle down in Texas, when do motorcycles get reintroduced to you there? When did you start riding there?
I came back to Texas. My dad lived in Texas, and we were living on base. But then we had to move off base for some reason. But we were right in Del Valley, which is right where Tesla's building a giant factory right now, right near the airport. But I was bagging groceries at the commissary on base, and I saved enough money to buy a Yamaha 60. Okay, little street bike, whatever, little oval thing. I don't remember even what year it was. It must have been 68 or something like that. And I was riding it. First of all, I was riding it chasing my little brother Lynn, my younger brother, I should say. It's still a little brother anymore. I still call him little brother. I had a playground across the street, and I'd take that thing, and he'd go around the playground, monkey bars and swing sets, and he'd go, nay, boo-boo stuff, and so I tried to run him down, right?
Yeah.
And this was in the sand on the playground. Cut through the swing sets and monkey bars and trying to avoid all the obstacles, right? And so I did pretty good at it, every once in a while I fall down.
Sure.
But finally one day I hit him. I got a little trouble for that, cut his ankle up, but actually we had to lie to my dad about it, otherwise I really got in big trouble,
Yeah. So go on.
That was my first practice, so to speak.
So after the playground incident with your brother, how long is it before you actually see a track?
Oh man, I don't know. I had to work another job. What happened was a gentleman who worked at it'd be about a year or two, maybe.
Okay.
About 69, 70, I think that's 70 or so. my sister had a boyfriend who worked at Bill Casson's Yamaha shop. Okay, his name was Ricky Lloyd. And he's really my protege, more or less. And Bill Casson being my number one sponsor back then, although it took a little while for that to happen. But Ricky go racing every weekend, somewhere. Cuero, Lockhart, all the local tracks in Texas. And he called it cherry picking. And so I ended up buying a 175 CT1 Yamaha.
Mm-hmm.
And it's AT1, CT1, DT1, right? And we stripped it down a little bit and went to the race. I said, I want to go to the races with you, Ricky. Loaded it up on the trailer and away we went. He was dating my sister. Also, they had a child. We got the first race was Corpus Christi, Texas, right?
Okay.
This is 70, I don't know, 72 or something like that, or 71, maybe probably 71. And got down there, and I didn't have a visor on my helmet or anything, but I always ride home because most of the riders out of that area, are wearing overalls, wearing cowboy boots, and
Yeah.
I raced the 175 novice class, so, and I won it, so that was interesting. I said, "Wow, this is cool." And then I think I won one other 175 junior class or whatever it is. Yeah. And then we ended up switching. Ricky Lloyd said, "Why don't we put a 125 cylinder on it, and you should ride expert so you can make some money?" And I said, "Sounds good to me." And so we put the 125 barrel on the 175, and I just raced on and won almost everything.
So you went to expert rather quickly on that 125.
Well, yeah, local racing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you just when did you apply for a professional license? I mean, you're mopping up locally. You're doing pretty good. How does that enter the picture?
How did I get professional?
Yeah.
Well, I finally signed up for an AMA license. I believe, gosh, I couldn't tell the exact year. I think it was 1970 or 71. And my number was 212N. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And my first national race, basically national novice race as a novice, because the N designation was for novice. It was in Florida, at I believe Jacksonville, and I actually won that race. So I won my first, professional novice. Well, with the N number, it was a professional race, but I won it as a novice. So.
Yes. And what bike are you on at that point, Steve?
Oh my God!
You weren't on CZ yet, were you?
CZ, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I do believe it was CD. Let me think about that.
Well, I think you got started with them in 73, really, but you were a pro for a year and a half or so, at least by then. So I don't know if you were on a CZ prior to that. I guess you'd know better than me.
I don't think it was a Mako, but I got that's something I'll have to fact find for myself.
Okay.
I guess like I say, a lot of these things, I got a good memory. It's just short.
Yeah. and Steve, as they say, Steve, it was the 70s. So.
There's a story to that too. When I won, we wanted to celebrate, and so it was really hot days, 2 40-minute motos, whatever it was, and it was rough, but we were so happy about the whole thing that I wanted to. Ricky said, "Let's drive back to Texas and party with all the folks back home."
Mm-hmm.
So it was right after the race, and so we started driving back to Texas. And I'm driving, he's making me drive, and we get on that highway in Tallahassee, that elevated highway, they got embankments on both sides, right?
Yeah.
It's Highway 10, whatever. Middle of the night, and I fall asleep driving.
Oh,
And off the road we went down. I mean, it's a long embankment too, man. I mean, it's steep. And we ended up rolling his van, right?
yeah.
With the bikes inside. Oh, man, it was crazy. We ended up in a ditch, sideways and, laying passenger side down in water, right? We're in, I don't know, we don't know how deep the water is, but I think it's gasoline. So I come flying out of the driver's window, I said, Ricky, get out. And he's in there cutting off switches and doing this. And I said, get the hell out of it. Excuse my French.
That's okay.
But it was crazy. And so I jump out and I ran in water about up to my, I don't know, waist or so. And then I said, get out of here, Ricky. He jumps out and he jumps in the water. And he said, I can't swim. I said, well, launch, And so that was quite a scene. They came and towed us out of the ditch next day with the wrecker, towed us off to some shop. The windshield's busted out, the frame's kind of twisted. This is an old Chevy mid-engine van,
Right.
And, one of the calamities was Ricky, he was a good mechanic. He got in there, flushed out the carburetor, did this and that. And we put our helmets and goggles on and we went to Texas,
and you got back.
Oh, yeah, we got back.
So
it's funny that guys on the highway, we'd lean out the front windshield and wave at them,
Yeah. Thinking back about those days, I recall you often wearing a jersey that said Action Cycle on it. Who was Action Cycle?
Action Supply.
Action Supply.
Yes. And that was Mr. Bill Daniels. He was a North Star distributor for boots, right?
Okay.
And he was quite the promoter. I mean, there's stories about Bill I can tell you all day long, but he came out of California. He was a carpet salesman. He could sell grandmother whatever the term is. He could sell her anything. But anyway, he sold a lot of boots down there. North Star, they did deal with Italy, and he had a big accessory business. Okay, Action Supply, and he got wind of me and approached me and said, "Hey, I'd like to come ride for me." And from Bill Cassidy's shop, that was my first, substantial sponsor. I mean, Bill could do what he did, and I love him for it. God bless him. He just passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went to Houston, that's when things started happening, and Bill was he'd try anything. I won a lot of races. Down to Hannah. There was not Hannah, but was it H&H Music Team? I don't know if you heard of them.
Sure, absolutely. Sure.
All the boys, we raced, go down there and race them all the time in Cloverfield and Rio and all these places. But yeah, I won a lot of races there. And so then we went national, right? This was like 72, 73, whatever. We started going to the nationals, and I started placing well. Action Supply became U.S. Sports.
Oh, okay.
At some point in that era, okay. And Bill, he spent money. He wasn't afraid to spend money on races and stuff. We had about every different rig that you could drive, right? We had truck vans, box vans, vans. But to tell you the truth, we started the big rig deal. He had a 55-foot trailer towed by a dually, Don. He was a big promoter. And that rig, we had the living quarters in the front and the shop in the back, right? A full-blown shop. And when the team started seeing us pull in that, they started taking note, it was the first big rig on the whole circuit, if I remember right.
Who else was on that team with you, Steve?
It was just me. There was, I can't remember anybody else offhand, but there was one. Sonny DeFeo rode with us a little bit.
Oh, sure.
yeah, and yeah, Sunny DeFeo and oh man, there may have been a couple of local writers, but right offhand, I can't remember who they were.
Okay.
But mostly it was just me, you know, and my mechanic, Glen Thompson, you know, started working for me. Very good friend of mine, dear friend, and still is. And so it's, you know, we had the first big rig on the road, no doubt. And funny story about that is, I'll have to tell you maybe later, but
you can tell me now if you like.
Oh, yeah, so later in my career, but oh yeah, I guess not really. We went to the transit and we pulled into the pits right in Livermore, and I'm telling you, it rained. Right, you know, it rains in California. I think it's a little slippery.
Yeah,
but it's the pits are built on one of them long hills, you know.
Yes.
And we're pulling this rig, Bernie, my mechanic, pulling this rig into the pits, and the entrance is at the top of this hill. And we come in there, you know, face down, and that rig just starts sliding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Suzuki team is parked at the bottom of that hill, all sideways down there, laid out. The works team, and boy, we slid. I mean, it's a long hill. I mean, we were sliding, Bernie trying to stop the dang thing, and you know, doing whatever he can, but it ended up going full sideways down that muddy slope. And those guys down at Suzuki, they're grabbing gear and running, right? I mean, they're moving everything they can to the truck. I mean, they're running for cover, and we came sliding up beside him and stop right before we did, you know. It was like, oh my God, everybody's having a heart attack. I mean, it was so funny.
Steve, you know, you had some great finishes with CZ in '73. You finished 9th, 6th, 3rd. You had a lot of top 10 finishes too with that Action Supply team. How did how did the factory Mako ride come along? Was it just? I mean, obviously you won some races. You were doing well.
I actually started riding Mako when I was with Bill Daniels at Action Supply.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, I wrote some CDs. And I wrote a bunch of different bikes. I wrote anything I could, for that matter. You know, every chance I got a bike, I wrote it. And he happened to have a Mako sitting down there, and a bunch of motorcycles he had, you know, stacked together. And I'm going, hey, what about that one? And it looks kind of cool, you know.
Yeah.
Mako, okay, Mako. Anyway, we fired that thing up, and I went out. It was a flat piece of ground, right? That had a little track going around by the building, and I took that thing out, and I don't know what happened, but it was like a revelation, you know. I mean, I'm half German, but I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But you know, I said, wow, this motorcycle goes wherever I want it to go. The power band is exceptional, torquey, totally tractable. The steering is fantastic. The suspension is wonderful. I mean, what's the deal? How come nobody's riding these things? You know, and I tell you what, I fell in love with it. I mean, I didn't think there was a better handling motorcycle out there. There wasn't at the time, to tell you the truth.
And the following year, you were what, a factory Mako rider the next year, '74?
They got approached by Mako Distributing in Pennsylvania and Morgantown, or I'm thinking it's Morgantown. I could be wrong about that, but little you know, dark hole down there somewhere in Pennsylvania, and they were just, that's where the distributing was, and went up there and signed a contract with him with the factory, right?
Yeah.
And Eckhart Schorn was running the distributing over here. And, you know, I think it was a $60,000 deal or something with some bonuses. And at the time, you know, that was good money, I mean, compared to what I'd been making. Right?
Did you say 50, Steve? 50?
60.
50. Wow.
No, 60.
60,000?
Yeah, plus bonuses. So, yeah. One.
Okay.
One each.
I've spoken to a lot of guys who had ridden in, you know, during those times, from Weiner to Lackey to a lot of different guys. even Gary Semix I had on last week, and I didn't hear anybody getting over, maybe 25 grand at that time in the early 70s. But look, you say 50 or 60,000, I believe you. I'm just surprised by the number, but
no. Maybe I'm sorry. I could be wrong. 60,000 might have been the next year. I apologize.
okay.
I really don't remember what that first year was. To tell you the truth, it was probably less for sure. But I know I signed for him in '75.
Yes.
And I know I got 50,000 salary one year.
Okay.
Which was part of the year. And then they also flew me to the races. So that was part of the deal,
Yeah. So
actually, did they start flying me to the races? I don't remember if we drove or flew. We did a lot of driving, though. There's no doubt about that.
who was your mechanic at Mako in 74, 75, Steve?
Glen Thompson. But he was a longtime friend of mine, very good mechanic. He didn't really know how to make a bike go faster, but he could definitely have one ready for a race. He could change parts quicker than anybody I know, and he was a hard worker. And nobody messed with us because of Bernie. He was like he was one tough guy.
Yeah.
I loved him, and I still do. And then, of course, our technical director, you know who that was.
Salvaraj.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we got to Pennsylvania, I don't know, it was 74, I guess. Went up there to that basement, dark, very cold basement in, I guess, February or something. I don't know, not even February. It must have been January or something. And we're down in the basement, and Eckhart Schwan introduced us Salvo, and he said, "This is a man that's going to show you how to get your bikes ready for a race."
Mm-hmm.
And they shipped over 3 stock bikes, right from the factory in Germany, and he showed us how to take every piece apart on all of them, how to file this, do this, punch that, and make the bikes last for 2 45-minute motos plus practice and so on and so forth, because there was a lot of tricks, and Salvo knew them all. I mean, if it wasn't for Salvo, I doubt that we'd have finished a whole lot less races than we did.
Yeah, we're going to be talking, or I'm going to be asking you a few more questions about Salvaraj and Arellano in just a little while. And for those of you that are just tuning in or may not know who Salvaraj is, he's the vice president of KTM today. Has had so much to do with motocross and the growth of it throughout the past 50 years. It's unbelievable.
Oh, he's my hero.
Yeah. Now, Steve. Okay. In the 75 season, you finished second behind Jimmy Weiner, and there was an exceptionally talented field of guys that you finished ahead of, including Gary Semix, Marty Smith, Tony DeStefano, Pierre Karsmarkers, of course, and Howerton, just to name a few. Did your program have a lot of training involved in it too, Steve? Were you working out, running, riding bikes? What were you doing back then?
No, I didn't talk about much how I trained. Very many people thought I'm just a kind of a loose hippie kind of guy, and I didn't, But let's put it this way: when it came down to the races, like Texas and hot, humid, when anybody that could, there were some good riders that could handle it, but even the guys that trained a lot would sometimes fall on their face during those races. And since I lived in Texas, right, and I trained in it, and yes, I did a lot. I did training, I did plenty of training, but I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't talk about it, But most of my training was fun training. I made it entertaining. I did a lot of swimming. I did a lot of water skiing. I did some running. I didn't like running, but I did some bicycling. Tried bicycling around Austin. Lance Armstrong's from Austin, and they got a lot of hills around there, and I would do go out and do these 13-mile, 15-mile loops in 110-degree heat in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
And pound pavement, and a lot of people, when it came to training, anybody can train when the weather's nice and cool and blah blah blah. In California where it's so nice air and everything, but you try training in 110-degree heat and beat, and it's different. It's different. So I didn't have any problem with stamina. That wasn't an issue. Most of my problems I get car problems. I'm still a very fortunate person to have had my career as it was, but it came from mechanical difficulties, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it wasn't called Supercross at the time, but you gave Mako an indoor championship in '75. Did you think it would come so far, Supercross, to what it is today? And what did you like or dislike about racing indoors?
Oh, I was totally all about it. I mean, the money was good, spectators were good. I didn't like the manufactured track, but what can you do? I mean, indoors for that matter. I mean, they didn't know how to make tracks indoors back then, and it was all experimental. And and I told people who asked me, I don't know, the famous announcer Larry Hoffman,
Yes.
asked me, "What do you think about this stuff?" And I said, it's going to be big. You know, back at that time, Rollerball was like a big movie, right?
Yes.
Rollerball. I said, it's going to be bigger than Rollerball. I mean, it's going to be kind of like that. You know, it's going to be sensational. And I knew it. I mean, I knew it was coming. I mean, Americans like to sit around in a seat and enjoy their racing.
Well, yeah,
you look at
you sort of had the gift of prophecy.
We have beer and popcorn and get all excited, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I knew it was going to be big. I knew that it had a long way to go.
You know, while we're talking about the Mako years and the series, Supercross series, and things like that, we were talking a moment about Salvaraj and Ariana, and I want to thank Sal if he's listening, and I know he is, for putting Steve Stackable and I together for this interview. I didn't know Steve before this. I got an autograph from him one time, but that's about as far as it went. Steve, you mentioned that Salvaraj actually taught you guys who were riding how to maintain the bikes, how to take them apart and work on them.
He was a technical director, head chief mechanic, and to us he was the boss. Like I said, we tore the motorcycles into every single piece and started all putting them back together. And he showed us everything, how to do the gears, how to do the shifter, how to do the cylinders, drill the hole in the piston so they wouldn't seize. It's up on the front where they used to see. I mean, there were so many tricks to making a Mako finish a race, believe me. And it was bad enough that we had the chain issues that we did, over the years. But the two biggest issues with Mako were chain and the wheels, right?
Yes.
And he couldn't really do anything about that. Mako used a double cross pattern in the wheels, which for Europe that was fine. They had soft soils and all that kind of stuff. For the United States, for our big jumps and hard tracks, those wheels just weren't going to cut it, and we found that out the hard way, obviously.
Yes.
And then we had chains jumping off, and the problem with that was that, the swing on pivot point was way too far away from the countershaft rotation point, okay? If you looked at old Makos, that was the big problem. And as the suspension went up and down, it changes the tension of the chain a lot. And so when they went to long travel suspension, that became more extreme. And there was a lot of issues with the chain in that respect. And, I have to tell you a story about 77 when Gary and me and Kent and Tony were all at the destinations, what happened over there as far as my ride was concerned.
Okay. It would be just out of line chronologically for me and my questions, but if you want to talk about that right now, Steve, I mean, we could talk about it.
I just don't want to leave that out because it's interesting.
Well, then let's talk about it right now. It's 77 and you're at the donations.
I'll wait for you to do your next question. I'll remember. I got some notes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to move on for a minute, but we will get back to the donations race with Semix, DeStefano, and Howerton. So after 75, you go to Suzuki in 76, where you finished third in both the 250 and the 500cc classes. How did the Suzuki ride happen? Who called you, and how did they lure you away from Mako?
Well, I don't know. at the Trans Am series, I usually did pretty good at the end of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was right. 75 was a good year for me. I mean, I won the Supercross series. Well, the whatever they call it series,
Yeah, the Super Series.
That's hardly ever accredited anymore. It's kind of a bummer, but that didn't mean nothing back then for some reason, and they rarely talk about that year because it was the beginning of Supercross, right? And anyway, after winning that and doing well in the Trans Ams, Suzuki got in touch with me and asked me to fly out and talk a contract, and so I did. I mean, of course, your dream is always to have a contract with a factory. Basically, I had a Mako factory, and that was cool, but they want like, Japanese factory, more money, whatever. It's a shame we always go for more money, but why not? While you get the chance, that's what you got to do. So they offered me, a contract and with bonuses and flying to all the races and renting cars and so on and so forth, and that was too good to pass up. So I signed with them that year, and that's where that went.
Yeah, and
learning well. That year, my mechanic Glen Thompson, and we had a pretty good year, but in light of Tony winning championship that year, didn't look that stellar. And what happened that year is after finishing third in both classes, in between the Nationals and the Trans Am series, which I always did well in, and I was really just getting dialed into that motorcycle, right?
Yeah.
We were out practicing playing with the family and everything, and playing softball. And there was a fly ball hit, and I was running forward for it, and I hyperextended my knee. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that started a whole series of issues. I had to have some surgery. Well, I had to have cartilage surgery, okay?
Yeah.
I tore my cartilage. And so I didn't get to ride the Trans Am series. And of course, how injuries and factories are. Nowadays, they give you another chance, but Suzuki didn't give me another chance. They didn't re-sign me for the next year, and that really something that hurt. I could do that well in both classes and just getting used to the motorcycle, and they didn't re-sign me. I mean, it broke my heart, and so I said, okay, that's all right. Came out next year, Mako, and I kicked everybody's ass. I won the first national. I said, I'm not going to let any Suzuki pass me this year.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, you did good in 77 too.
Pardon me?
I said, you did really well in 77 too when you went back to Mako.
Right. And I there's several things that I should have won that I not. I mean, even in 75 at New Orleans, there's a movie about it. Battle of New Orleans, whatever. One chance to win. And I mean, if it wasn't for breaking spokes in the front wheel, the first moto, I was in second place, about 35 minutes through it. And if I would have just finished seventh in that moto instead of 11th, I would have won the national championship that year. For the next moto, I won it going away, and that was a big heartache. Some other instances that happened, DNFs. Of course, everybody has DNFs, and it's just part of the sport. A lot of other guys had issues that day. Grossi stuffed it in the fence. Pierre and Tony collided over a big jump and took each other out. Obviously, it's a matter of odds and stuff like that. But let's put it this way: they were there one of those, and I beat them all. Brad was there too.
I
it
do.
was just a matter. It was so hot and humid and bumpy, and that I won. I won the second moto by about 30 seconds or more.
Mm-hmm.
But Brad was there, and Wyatt was there, and of course everybody was there. But it was only a 5-race series that year, unfortunately. Yeah.
Right. Hey, Steve, you were one of the first guys to wear a nylon synthetic pair of pants made by Griff's. and they claim that they sold over 50,000 pair of that Stackable signature race pants. Were you getting a piece of that action at the time?
Yeah, I got 2%.
Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Steele basically created the design. Stanley Griffin manufactured it. He's passed away, so is Tom, unfortunately, bless their souls. But yeah, I mean, 2% wasn't a lot, and who knows if I really got 2%, but there's not a lot of profit on this stuff in the beginning. So yeah, I got a royalty on that. And my brother, Rolf, who was my business manager and did so much for me, took care of. We had a Steve Stackable ultralight products business. I guess you never heard of that, but we were distributing the pants, and several riders used those pants. Bob Hanna, Galen Mosier. There's a picture of 6 of us or so standing around, 6 or 7 of us who were wearing grips, right?
Yes.
Me and Hannah and Rossi and Burgett and who else was standing there? I don't know. There's a couple more riders standing there, but they were all wearing those pants because they were comfortable, and they were the new wave for sure.
So who are some of your other sponsors, Steve, off the bikes? Who are some of your other sponsors that stuck with you over the years?
Mel Ray, Kirk, I forget Kirk's last name, but he was awesome. Fox Shock, Scott Goggles, he was, it's hard to name or remember them all, but,
okay.
But those were some of the main people that stood by me on Mako, and they were good promoters of the sport.
Okay. Now, a little while ago, we were talking about the 77 The Nations race. You said you would remember what you were going to be talking about that. What was it we were talking about? Something about, was it the bike or?
Yeah, it was a bike issue, but in the beginning, it was a passport issue. We were all leaving from Florida, me and Gary and Kent and Tony.
Yeah.
We had to fly into New York and then go from there, right?
Yes.
Got into New York, and I had left my passport in Florida.
Oh.
Oh, what a nightmare. So I had to wait. Those guys took the flight. I missed it. I had to wait till my passport got, mail rushed up to New York, and then take the next flight. I guess it was the next day or the day after. I don't remember, but it was kind of a difficult start to the whole team thing.
Right.
And got over there, and me and Gary hooked up. We're great as friends. Gary Senex, we talk to each other quite regular, and we've hung out together quite a bit. And we used to go to his farm all the time, and people go to his farm in that part of the world, and a lot of people come visit us in Texas when the races were in that area, or they're traveling through that area.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, what I'm going to tell you is about the new Mako, okay?
Yeah.
So I get over there, and we're still riding the old style Makos, right? Back in the States.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't, changed the frame or anything in a long time. They're getting kind of archaic as far as the engine is concerned. So I get over there, and they got the new engine, and I forget what they called it, the new transmission, the new
Magnum.
Everything.
The Magnum.
Exactly. And they moved the swing arm pivot real close to the countershaft pivot, right?
Yes.
Rotation. Awesome setup. But nobody's riding. They all got the new bikes. All the other factory guys and Hans Moss and the guys from the factory. We're going into Cognac, France, and they're all riding their works bikes. Their tried, true, and tested works bikes. Well, they throw me on the new bike to test for them. And I'm going, cool. I'm all about it. I don't mind. And I kicked all of them, but on that bike, I was in second until I 30 minutes into the race in the first moto until I slipped out. From the time I slipped out of the groove, I ended up finishing sixth in that moto. And the Americans finished second that year, which is their best finish overall yet.
Yeah, I think you guys finished second in Holland and in France.
It was overall in the destination, yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And the American team hadn't done that good, I don't think, before that. Even though we had a lot of issues, I'm not even begin to get into that.
Okay.
But the funny thing was, the next race, right? That was the 4 open class race. The next race, they're all on their new bikes, right? Going into Holland, Markelo, Holland. It was funny. They're all on their brand new, new model machines now. Now that they've seen that, the bike is going to be okay, after I tested it in races, they all jumped on their new bikes and rode them that next weekend. And we did good there too. We started out good. Me and Gary both got hole shots. My Kawasaki man, my Mako Hans Mosh gave me a cylinder to put on my bike. Right, he came up to me personally, and this was a very moment of revelation, kind of like a religious thing. Hans Mosh from Mako comes up to me, big tall guy,
Sure.
And he says, "Here, Steve, take this cylinder for the 250 race." And I said, "Wow, thank you." And that's the fastest 250 I've ever ridden in my life. I couldn't believe it when I put that cylinder on there. I was so stoked. We got the whole shot. Gary got the whole shot, and it's through the trees in Holland. It's a pretty tricky track. Real sandy, lonely, bumpy, up and down whoop-de-doos. Constant, bumps in the trees, and we're running first and second, and we almost pulled that out of the hat. But what happened was Gary's bike, little head gasket, I think, started leaking, so he drops out, and about halfway through the race, they had a bicycle rack that they used for chicane in the middle of a long straightaway, right?
Yeah.
Long straightaway, they had this bicycle rack that you had to go around. Okay, it's a big long bicycle rack. And they had it set, perpendicular to the track, and they had some hay bales kind of stuffed up on it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm, the track getting left, right, I'm breaking into that sharp chicane going around that thing on the straightaway, and I stuffed my front tire into the last little tire rack into the bicycle rack. Last little slot in the bicycle rack, trying to get to the chicane because the hay bales would disintegrate. I was so devastated, Of course, 10 guys passed me trying to pull it out of there and get going again. But it was great. It was a great experience. Really went to the Mako factory for a week and truly enjoyed it. Me and Gary had a good time hanging out together. We went to Cognac, to the Cognac factory and drank Cognac. Of course, that was just something that they did to entertain us overall. But quite a trip, really. Couldn't have got that experience anywhere else.
Had you been at the Mako factory before that, Steve, or that was your first trip there?
No, I'd never been at the Mako factory. I'd never been in Germany.
Except when you were born.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey.
So very revealing,
Yeah. In 78, you went to Kawasaki. How did your salary increase, and did you like the bike? What was your experience there at Cowie that one year?
Oh man, that was a tough one.
Yeah.
I had some. It started out great. We all went testing in Japan. It was me, Wyatt, Galen, Torley, Thompson. They flew the whole team over for testing in Japan.
Okay.
And we get there, and of course, they put us up in, put that and all that. We're eating shrimp down on the Japanese grill, things hopping around. And Wyatt, what somebody is. He's always cutting up things, but any kind of trouble he can. And what happened there? Oh, I could tell you a lot of stories about that, but it's not kind I could tell in public. So
I get you.
finally, and it was amazing. They pull up in these 3 trucks, these Japanese flatbed trucks, right? And they must have motorcycles stacked sideways from the front to the rear on these 3 flatbed trucks. They must all fit about 20 bikes, right?
Yeah.
And there's 5 of us or something. And there's probably at least 40 motorcycles, I gotta say. Okay, we all had 5 bikes at least, okay, to test. And we're a Suzuki track. And so for 3 days, I mean, every bike's set up different. The suspension, spring rate, carburation, shifting, gearing, the whole 9 yards. Each bike's a little different. So they have us take a bike out, go around the track a few times, come in and say what needed, right? What needs adjusted, what needs to, how does this feel? And, all day long we're filling out reports, changing things. We get on the next bike while they're working on that one, making changes. And we rotate through these motorcycles all day long for 3 days. It's amazing, and, we think we're making a lot of headway, but, they bring out suspension charts, jetting charts, gearing charts, tire choices, handlebar positions, fork rates. And, oh, man, I mean, it was pretty cool, quite a technical fiasco. And then, trying to figure out which bike was working the best, we were all riding double shot. And then, they had front suspensions anywhere from, 10 to 13 inches, right?
Yes.
And, it went on and on and on. Finally, at the end of the whole deal, between 125, 250, and open class, there wasn't a second difference in lap times.
Wow.
It was amazing.
So they took your word for it, and they did what you guys asked to do.
Well, they did whatever they could do, but see, and so we thought, okay, we must be prepared. We've been over here testing. We got everything ready to go. We go back to the States. We hit the first races, and we find out we're not even close, right? Because everybody else has jumped in leaps and bounds. Honda, Yamaha, they've all made all their improvements, right?
Yeah.
And so, and on Kawasaki, Rick Jones, my mechanic, super good mechanic, super tuner. He could tune, make anything as fast as you wanted it. But the problem with Kawasaki, actually started out as a problem with me. We were at the Atlanta Supercross, and I think it was the first Supercross of the year. And me and Rich Irstead got the whole shot, and I'm right behind him. And about 10 minutes into, I don't know how many minutes into the moto, there was this real choppy sweeper straightaway. And, I had my leg out, and I got jammed my foot on the ground, and it popped my knee up and underneath the handlebar, right? Mm-hmm. And so that started a bad year of knee problems. Okay, that was the first thing, right? And I go through. My leg swelled up like a basketball for a couple of days, and then I could get back to some riding, right? But and we did okay, but not. The bike was hard to ride. Mainly during that year, we had 6 frame changes. We had anywhere from 10 to 13 inches of suspension travel. We had rear shock configurations that constantly changed. So we were constantly testing, and I never really got used to any one motorcycle, to tell you the truth. Rick Jones made the bikes plenty fast. We could get whole shots. We could, outrun them on the straightaway. But the problem with the Kawasaki at that time was you couldn't steer it. And you want to know why?
Why?
Because the front end's always in the air. Mm. The front tires are on the ground. Mm.
So it just...
They're so pipey that, it's like your front end's always so light. The thing's always trying to jump outside the turns or do a wheelie or you land and try to go backwards. It was constant fight with the geometry, with the power, with the jetting. But I tell you what, we worked hard on that thing. And it was funny because I had my knee pop up a couple times during the year, but I was still hanging in there. But the final race, the serious point with Kawasaki, I think I got second in the Trans Am race. I believe it's Trans Am race. Yeah.
Yeah.
They finally got the new motor, the right frame, the right combination, and it started working. The handling got right, and after so much variations in the geometry and the frames and so on and so forth, finally got something that really was starting to work. But it's too late by then. We just didn't have the results for the year. So
In '79, Steve, 78 you were with Kelly. In '70, you went to Yamaha there for a minute. In March of '79 till March of '80, you were on a Yamaha.
79, I believe.
Yeah,
LP race.
Yeah.
Well, actually, wasn't quite LP yet. Kind of privateered it a little bit on Yamaha. What happened, and there's some good pictures from Daytona and stuff on that.
Yes.
But switching bikes again, trying to get comfortable on something different. I didn't get the results, and then did a year with LP Racing, and there's a lot of history there, but we don't need to go into all that, So I think 81 was my last year, and I was riding Yamaha at that time, but just wasn't getting the results, So
I even see, Steve, that in one of the results here at Daytona, you were on a Honda for one day.
That's not true.
Oh no,
I've never ridden.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Some stuff that you got there is a little bit off. I don't know where it came from, but maybe because just the looks of the bike, somebody might call it a Honda, but I've never ridden Honda.
Yeah. Okay. You do some research, and it's not always right, which is what makes these interviews a whole lot more interesting too. So.
Sure.
So yeah, by 80 or 81, the bikes had changed a lot, and what makes you say at that point? I mean, is it just the results? What's happening that Steve Stackable says that's it? I've had enough.
I think that my results weren't happening like I wanted to. I wasn't with the factory anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Flying around, getting paid, well. Unfortunately, since I had a bad year at Kawasaki, it was hard to. No factory wanted to really sign you. You're only as good as your last race. The way it works, and my brother was promoting, our business and everything, and we were looking for rides. LLP picked us up a little bit, which was some help, and but then there was another guy. I forget his name, but it was short-lived, PDQ or whatever. But that wasn't much better deal, And so I was in the pits, kind of standing there one day, and I remember before I started racing, or when I wanted to be a motocross star, I was on that side of the fence looking at the factory riders and staring at these guys, Gary Bailey, and I didn't tell you about the race I went to in Kansas when Bill Cass and we all ran in a big bus, and the whole town, motorcycle fans, went up to Kansas City and watched Roger DeCoster, Sylvan Gavoris, and Joel Rivera all ride this Inter-Am race. But that was quite. They inspired me quite a bit. Anyway, I'm a factory rider. I'm standing on the other, in the pits, and I saw this look on this kid's face that I remember on my face.
Yeah.
And that hungry look that I want to be where you're at, right? And I knew, I said to myself, this is full circle. This is, this kid's he wants to be a factory rider and do what I'm doing, and he probably will, because I know how I felt when I was looking across at these guys, and wanted to be like them.
Yeah.
And that revelation kind of, brought it all to light that, I think I may have done this long enough. I made a bit of a career out of it. I would hope that I would have won more races and championships, but certain things held me back, but that's life, that's racing. You enjoy something as much as you can, even though it is hard work. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing easy about motocross racing. People only see the race, they don't see what happens in between, all the work that all the families do, and all the mechanics do, and all the driving, and all the expense. And there's so many more other people involved in motocross than just the riders, and those people are the people that really make it happen. Back in that day, motocross was a family. It was even the riders. There may have been controversies and a few fist fights every now and then.
Yeah.
Like people slapping somebody, Jimmy and Kent, in Dallas, things like that. There's some riders that didn't like each other, generally speaking. But I never had a problem. That kind of problem with any riders. And I thoroughly enjoyed, my time of doing it. But at that point, I said, enough. I think I'll bow out. Gary Bailey, not Gary, but his son David,
Yeah.
Shortly thereafter, had his tragedy. I forget who it was before him, that ended up, well, there have been several people that had issues,
Yeah, you had Danny Chandler, David Bailey, of course, later on, Jobé and Malherbe.
Yeah, and I don't know, I kind of get to a point in a career, it's the same thing kind of with my flying career, where I say, maybe, here's a little red flag, maybe you should just, stay healthy and go on with your next, mission in life, whatever it may be.
Sure. Well, let's talk about your flying career, Steve. How soon after the motocross retirement did you begin flying? Is it ultralights or?
Oh no, I was flying in 1972.
Oh, okay.
Hang gliding.
Okay.
72.
So there was
back in the pit of hang gliding. I was flying.
So is it hang gliding and ultralight, Steve? Tell us a little bit more about what you do there.
Oh, well, I did some ultralighting, not necessarily so much ultralighting as what we call trikes, powered hang gliders. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did that kind of on the side, just a friend of mine bought. Well, actually, this could get pretty lengthy, but a friend of mine bought, and I invested in what we call a tow trike, where we could tow other hang gliders up with it. And then in Texas, these French boys brought a couple of these tow trikes, and we bought them. You hooked the line up through the prop, and they were pushers. And you could tow other. You had a release on two-in line and release on the free flight pilot, and we towed each other up in the air. And then release once we get thermals and just take off.
Okay.
And but I was flying in the early days of hang gliding back in Hawaii in 1974. I had my own Mako. I had custom kite built with Mako on it, because that was who I was riding with that year, of course. And then after I quit racing, a friend from California, Teddy Mack, had bought a factory in San Diego, one of the most famous factories in hang gliding, Delta Wing hang glider. It's called Bill Bennett. He's one of the first people who got it, brought hang gliding to America. But anyway, my buddy brought this company, and he came to Austin. He was in Austin. He said, "Hey, you want to come work for me?" Being a shop general manager, and I said, "Sure, why not?" California, Torrey Pines, whatever. Southern California. So I left Texas and started working there at the factory. And, I was already multi, probably a couple $1,000 pilot, easy. But then I got all my ratings, okay? All my flying ratings. And I don't want to bore anybody with all
You're not boring anybody, Steve. And you know what? You don't get a chance to speak too often, and I don't want to bring
Right.
I don't want to bring anybody down in any way, shape, or form. But you know what? One day you're talking to a friend and you're having a little interview and you're having a little conversation. Then the next day, one of you are gone. And I didn't get it. I didn't get a chance to do an interview with Marty Smith. I didn't get a chance to do an interview with some guys. Joe Robert, I think, is Joe Robert is hanging on to life by a thread right now. So you know what, Steve? If we want to talk about hang gliding, we'll talk about hang gliding all we'd like. So continue on with your story. I am more than interested in hearing all about it.
Cool. Well, I hope everybody else doesn't mind either, because I know there's a lot of listeners out there.
Absolutely.
But anyway, I was basically managing building hang gliders out here in Southern California at the factory. I organized the whole factory. But I was already not a professional pilot at that time, but I was an advanced pilot, advanced rating hang gliding pilot. And so when I was out here the next few years, Troy Pines was just up the street. We did a lot of testing there. We take gliders there, test fly them. And of course, while I was doing that, I got all my ratings. Okay, I'm currently a advanced instructor in hang gliding and paragliding, a level 5 pilot in both. I'm a tandem administrator and tandem instructor at both. I'm a tandem administrator at hang gliding. In other words, I take tandem pilots and teach them how to be tandem pilots.
Okay.
Because it's a strict thing. There's a lot of regulations, that you have to go by to become a tandem hang glider pilot and take people commercially. Okay. So I'm an administrator for that still. Have been for many, many years. People come to me if they want their ratings, and I'm an instructor, advanced instructor at both hang gliding and paragliding. But I still hold all those ratings, but I'm basically retired from flying. Okay.
Okay.
I worked at Torrey Pines for 25 years.
Where is Torrey Pines, Steve? Is that down by La Jolla?
It's La Jolla. Yeah, it's the cliffs that overlook a place called Black's Beach in La Jolla. Beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous. I mean, Salvo's been there. He'll tell you all about it. I don't remember if I took anybody from his group flying. It seems like I did, but let's put it this way: I took over 10,000 people flying there. Okay, over the years.
Wow.
23.
When was the last time you did that, Steve?
Let me see. I was just flying yesterday, day before yesterday.
Oh, okay. Because my wife's been asking.
I'm flying from where I live. Doing some personal flying. I launched off the mountain and went up a couple thousand, and had about an hour flight and landed. I do that regularly.
I see. Yes, because my wife has been asking me, oddly enough, about hang gliding for years, and it's like I don't know anything about hang gliding. I don't know anybody that does it. So, would it be possible for you to maybe give her a lesson in hang gliding?
Well, see, hang gliding has kind of become the back door, the back. I don't know how you could say that, but paragliding has become the greatest thing going, because it's so much easier to take people paragliding than hang gliding. It's all a form of hang gliding, so to speak.
Okay.
But paragliding is a whole lot easier to take passengers. It's easier to stay up. It's easier to land. It's easier to launch. And so, hang gliding, it was after thousands of hang gliding tandems, it was hard on my body. I ended up getting an injury, right? And that wasn't just because of flying. It was a little bit of racing career there too. I had some knee injuries, so I got my knee replacement. And I was real happy about that. They're working real good now. So a lot of things, but as far as professionally speaking, like I say, I'm retired now, so I don't make a living at it. Okay, right. I can take people tandem flying, personal friends, whatever, anybody I want, really, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
But I don't make money at it anymore.
I got
it's not my fault. But I did it for 23 years, so but I still have all the ratings to do that. If she wanted to go tandem hang gliding, we'd have to pick perfect day, on the right time and go for it.
Okay.
But timing is key in that. The difference is that you can go paragliding most of the time. You can go hang gliding when the wind's proper. That's good.
Well, we'll talk more about that at another time. But at least I could tell her now, because when I told her that you did that, She's been asking me about it for years.
Well, we can talk more about that later.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Steve, I mean, I hate to ask this question, but it's probably on everybody's mind. You ever have any close calls with any of that flying?
Well, let me tell you about close calls, okay?
Yes.
The times in my life when I've been closest to death have always been in vehicles, okay? Going here, going there, okay? In 1990, we were at a hang gliding championship, cross-country championship, trying to set a world record for distance, where, you take off, you get towed up, you release, and you take off from a good location and fly as far as you can. We're in Big Springs, Texas, okay? And we get up, a group of us are up in the air, and we're flying. Our goal that day is to fly 110 miles to Hobbs, New Mexico. Okay, so this is a warm-up for the next weekend for the World Championship competition. We fly, I fly 110 miles, okay? A couple other guys do too. We land, and our buddy comes and picks us up that evening. On the way back from there, we get hit head-on by a drunk driver, okay? It kills both drivers. I'm in the back seat with my leg up on a cooler. Totally breaks me into bunches of pieces. Double femur break, contusions, concussions, blah, blah, blah. The whole thing. I'm in the hospital for 2 months. And the doctor would never say I'd walk again in the beginning. I'm in a coma. A near-death experience for me. It did kill one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And what a mess. What a horrifying mess. And then we've been up at cloud base all day, 8,000 feet, anywhere from, 3 to 8,000 feet climbing infernals and going to, running with the wind so that we can cover distance. And, you talk about risk. Okay. Been a 1-star racer all my life, been hang gliding a lot of my life. And this kind of stuff happens. There's 2 things in your life you can't control. That's getting head on and getting rear on.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what you got to remember on a motorcycle. People ask me, always ask me, but anyway, finish that story. I survived. One of my best friends died. There's 5 of us in that van. That van rolled, totaled. If you saw the picture throwing, you don't know how anybody lived, because the guy that hit us was a 5-time offender, alcohol blood level 4.0, driving Bonneville, and we're out in the middle of nowhere, West Texas, and there's 3 cars on the highway. One he's passing us. This is the odds, okay? And we've been up in the sky all day long.
Yeah.
It's just ironic, and people say, oh, well, you live dangerously, And I say, well, you know what? Everybody lives dangerously when they get on the road out there. And that's not the only experience that's happened to me on the road. Crossing the dam in Mansfield Dam, Texas, early one Sunday morning, go flying across the lake. A drunk driver comes around the bend on the dam, and he's in my lane, and he almost takes us both out, and we'd both gone over the dam. Okay, just 1 second difference. Another time on that same dam, there's a propane truck coming across the dam with 1,000-gallon propane tank strapped to this truck. He's doing a delivery.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing's strapped sideways. They've got these gate raisers on the dam that move back and forth to open the gates. And this dam is narrow. You see busted mirrors all over the place, right? Where these gate movers are. It's a narrow 2-way passing point. This guy's coming across. I'm in my van, and I'm going, 40, 50 miles an hour. That guy in the propane truck hits those gate raisers that big tank strapped down with giant chains sideways. It snaps one of the chains. He starts to go up and over the side. That propane truck, I'm locking them up. I'm telling you, I'm on the brakes, screeching the tires, because that tank swings over into my lane, right? One chain still, it swings out, 1,000-gallon tank swings out in my lane, and I've got them locked up, and then it swings back, and I go by. Just like that.
Well,
things like that, you just 1 second either way. It's so many things. Anyway, people call up to go hang gliding, stand them, and I've never come close to dying and flying.
Okay.
Never. Not, like I say, like driving. People call up to go hang gliding. We say, they ask if it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And we say, no, but be careful getting here.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, I've got one more question, then we're going to wrap up for the day. Do you watch Supercross? Do you enjoy it? What do you think about it overall?
I watch Supercross, MotoGP. I watch all this stuff, And back at home, I got my little brother is Lynn. He's good friends with Kevin Schwantz, and we go fishing together. I go out fishing with Kevin and my brother, and we had a hell of a good time. Kevin Schwantz, world champion, MotoGP 1984, and he has a party every year, and we all get together, and we just have a great old time. And I'm sorry, what was your question again?
No, that was it. Do you watch Supercross, and do you like it, or is there anything you'd change about it? Do you think the tracks have gotten too radical?
No, I think it's just a progression of whatever the people want to see, whatever they'll pay for, whatever. I think it's highly dangerous, obviously.
Yeah.
You talk about double jumping. We created double jumping accidentally. Me and Tony in Dallas in '75, I believe it was, created double jumping accidentally. Okay, they had 2 jumps on the straightaway that were close enough that once we got going on the open bikes, we started to land on the second jump. Right?
You and DeStefano?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And you couldn't have to do about it, but it happened, and we started landing on the second jump. The crowd went wild, right? And that's when we started figuring out, okay, well, we can combine some of these jumps and really make a spectacle out of this. Of course, the experimenting with that in the beginning was pretty scary, but how far to put them apart, and then to make tabletops to make it safer and stuff like that. But it's double, triple jumping and rhythm sections. It's all man-made, unfortunately.
Yeah, but yeah,
and it still takes a lot of skill. It's a whole lot of skill to navigate that stuff. I think the riders these days are super athletes. The guys I rode with were super guys. Everybody in their own time, really. It's all relative. Back then we started with 3 inches of suspension travel up to 6 inches. And then we went all the way up to 12 inches on both ends. That's a lot of development.
It is, Steve. And I had David Dewhurst on a couple of weeks ago, and his book is coming out, The Golden Age of Motocross. And you were there during the Golden Age, no question about it.
I was. And I'm just happy to have lived in the good old times and raced in the good old times. Obviously, now it's big business. It's motorcycle sales, and I totally respect all the riders out there that do it. And you got to be on your game out there to not be injured and get through seasons. And they're doing spectacular things on motorcycles, obviously.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the new season too, and I want to thank Salvaraj and Ariana for putting this interview together with Steve and I. And I want to thank Steve Stackable for being my guest this morning.
Okay. Well, I hope I didn't talk too much.
Steve, it was great. I enjoyed the stories about the hang gliding and, of course, your years with Mako, Suzuki, Kawasaki, and CZ.
And I want to thank my good friends, the guys I hung out with, Simics, Wyatt, Pomeroy, all these guys, they're great people.
Yes.
And, it's a good time to be in the sport, We were learning a lot, doing a lot together, and we all love each other. And God bless the world and what's going on out there, because we need some help in the world.
Amen to that, Steve. I agree with you there. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
we got motocross, so that's good.
That's for sure. Steve, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you again.
Well, thank you so much, Joe, for having me.
You're welcome, Steve.
Thank the rest of the country out there for being fans and watching the sport and keeping it alive.
Amen.
All right.
Take care, Steve. My guest this morning at Vintage Motocross Radio has been Steve Stackable. I really enjoyed the stories about the hang gliding and his flying and the great experiences that he had there. I want to thank our sponsors, of course, for making this show possible. Northwest Mako CZ. Thank you, Alan Brown. Preston Petty Products, the legend continues. AMSOIL, the first in synthetic oil since 1973. Full Circle Racing for rim, spokes, lacing, truing. For your vintage and modern bikes, get a hold of Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing. Vintco, keep the ride going with over 650 products in their catalog. Motion Pro, for specialized tools, cables, and controls. Be sure to visit all of our sponsors online and on social media. Don't forget to join me Wednesday night for Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank Jan Berry, James Costello, Phil Liberty, and so many more. Salvaraj, thank you for tuning in today and listening to the interview. And thank you for making that happen. Norm Hamaka, Pete Noneman, and so many others. Dennis Cox, thank you all for tuning in today to Vintage Motocross Radio. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'm Joe Abadi. Thanks for listening.